The highest voted um, option thing that people voted for this podcast was feelings/backstory on the next Judicator album. I'm going to drop a link in here. This will give you all pretty much a rundown, or it'll give you a basic rundown of what the album covers. The album, of course, is not just a retelling of this, because that would be lazy. Myself as a storyteller shouldn't be lazy. We take a different approach, and you'll see that when you listen to the album and watch that video. It's a YouTube series I definitely recommend called, Extra History. Yeah, it's amazing. It's awesome, and you should all watch it and support it. They have merch. Go and buy it. I don't care. So, as some of you may know, this is distracting. I can't have Facebook up while I do this. I'm going to get the lyrics up. How about that? So the album is about Belisarius, who's a general to Emperor Justinian, who reigned over the Eastern Roman Empire, what a lot of people know as the Byzantine Empire. And we covered this a little bit last time, but I'm going to restate it and emphasize it, that the Byzantine Empire, the Eastern Roman Empire, it is the Roman Empire. So that is something to keep in mind. And that makes it all the more interesting, because when you keep in mind that, I don't even know when you would say the Byzantine Empire started. If you wanted to divorce it from Rome, like there's no definitive moment when the Byzantine Empire began like there was with Rome. If I remember right, the Roman Empire began in 47 BC with some guy named Romanus. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then at a certain point in Rome's history, they split up into two different sides, east and west. And there would be an emperor over each side. Both co-equal, but it helped managing the empire be easier. It's actually too hot for a sweater. So what happened is Western Rome fell in the 400s, I think? Yes, the 400s it must have been. And so Western Rome fell. Eastern Rome continued to survive. And something that's interesting to keep in mind with that is that Western Rome, if I recall right, was predominantly agricultural. It was a great center of power, of course, but they were messing themselves up with overextending themselves and barbarians and economic factors and political factors. But the thing that is helpful is to know is that the capital was moved from the city of Rome to Constantinople. And I believe that happened, yes, with Constantine, the Emperor Constantine, who legalized Christianity, and with the Edict of Milan. And he also called he called the first Christian ecumenical council, which was a council to refute the heresy of Arianism, not to be confused with anything racist. It was a movement started by a bishop in Alexandria named Arius. And basically the whole dispute was Christological, which is to say it was a dispute over the nature of Christ. So you had Arius on the one hand, who said that Romulus and Remus, thank you, Stephen. I knew it. Romanus, no, Romulus. Okay. So you had Arius in Alexandria, and he basically taught that Christ was not co-equal with the Father, because you have Father, Son, Holy Spirit. And he taught that there was a time before Christ existed, and that Christ was, put it however you want to, but a creature. A creature is something that's created in this kind of vocabulary. So Christ was a creature, according to Arius. And so that's the Arian point of view, basically. And the Orthodox, capital and lowercase, you could say, O, position was that Christ is eternally begotten, co-equal, and co-eternal with the Father. There never was a time when Christ did not exist. So these two factions were the big players at the Council of Nicaea. Why am I even talking about Nicaea? It doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about, but it does sort of establish that, yeah, I can connect it somehow. So it basically establishes that, there are some parallels here, which are that Constantine did call the First Ecumenical Council, but there is also scriptural basis for ecumenical councils. I believe it's Acts 15 or 17, where the apostles come together and discuss, if I remember right, associating with Gentiles and circumcision for Gentiles. And we actually consider that like the first proper church council. But ecumenical councils, in the way that we think of them, started with the Council of Nicaea. And this is important because Constantine legalized Christianity. And when this whole Arianism thing started happening, if I remember right, it was Arianism that started causing a schism in the church. People were fighting each other over it. And basically, he wanted to keep the church that he had just endorsed and embraced, because he himself embraced Christianity. He wanted to make sure that it didn't like fall into schism. So he called the council, brought together, invited bishops and priests from all across the empire. And and so there's sort of a in apologetics with Mormons, I guess, because I'm a member of some of these groups that do debates and whatnot. I don't know. The two accusations are that the Trinity was invented, that it was an innovation that took place at the Council of Nicaea, and that doesn't bear out, and I can explain it if you want. And the other one is that Justinian like called the council with no that it was like a fault for Justinian to call it, and that councils, separation of church and state, basically. And that kind of harks back to what we were talking about last week too, with separation of church and state versus harmony of church and state. And I think there are on that topic points of beneficial points to both. I don't know how you would have a harmony of church and state now, because we have so many different religions in the US. So that really would be a matter of favoritism, That's tricky. I mean, you can think of like Orthodox Christians who are in Syria, for example, or Lebanon, or Jews too. It's tricky. You hope you get, if you're in a place where there is no separation of church and state, you got to hope you're under the right religion. If you're under a religion that, I'm not going down that rabbit hole. If you had a perfect monarchy, I think it would work. Well, see, all right, and that's what we kind of get to and connect with last week about the Byzantine Empire, the Eastern Roman Empire. If you are smart, you will keep the Eastern Roman Empire with the Western. Like it's just one empire. If you have a piece of bread and you cut it in half, this one goes in the dumpster. This is still the same piece of bread. If the United States, like if the Eastern United States fell and the Western United States kept going, the Western United States would say, yes, we're still American. We're absolutely American. Now you would have the cultural elements from the West more predominant. So like to that end, Rome became more Greek, more Hellenized. Okay. That doesn't mean it's any less Roman. Like you can't really tie the Roman Empire to culture like that, like, or not culture, like nationality. And that sort of is kind of a beautiful way to connect into the Catholicity, the universality of Rome. And you see different, like when the Turks eventually captured Constantinople, they fancied themselves the new Rome, the continuation of Rome. It's like, sorry, Charlie, you kind of shot yourself in the foot there, man. Not only are you Muslim, which separates you religiously, but also like as far as values are concerned, and just the way everything was run, just like you can tell that it was conquered. I don't have to defend the point that the Turks are not the new Rome, but in Orthodox circles now, you'll see some people refer to Russia as the new Rome, and that's interesting. Sorry, that was quite a rant. Some hot tea. Ooh, baby. North Africa was like the Bible Belt. North Africa is an interesting topic in the history of Christianity. At Guy 24, however, Christ would be king in this case. That's another interesting thing about the Byzantine Empire. Oh yeah, the point that I originally wanted to get to was that, so you have the empire started in the west, continued, and ended in the east. It's the longest lasting empire in the history of the world. So, because Rome didn't fall until 1453. When did Columbus sail the ocean blue? 1462 or 1452? It was not that long until Columbus. Is my cat one in? I gotta let my cat in through the window. 1492, the year Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Are you coming in, kitty? Or are you just gonna meow? Okay, you're just going to meow. I'll leave the window open for it. Nope. All right, I'll leave the window open. Strange. She'll come on the windowsill outside of my window, and she'll just like meow. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. 1492. So it's like Rome didn't fall that long ago. That was like 500 years ago or so. I don't have a calculator, and I'm not that good at math, but 1492 rounded up to 1500. 2000. It's like, that's 500 years. 500 years is not that long. 1492 rounded, or 1492, that's Columbus. 1453. Okay, so 50. 550 years. Still not that long. That's like 200 or 300 years till the United States was born, dude. Come on, bruh. I'm self-conscious about the window being open and people walking by and being like, I'm going to drive by, shoot this guy's house. We don't live in the ghetto, but we live in kind of a place that's on the border of a ghetto. Not a ghetto, just it's Kearns, Utah, if that means anything to you people in Utah. Okay, I'm going somewhere with this, I promise. The hood, basically. So, longest lasting empire, they must have been doing something right. They had a lot going for them, whatever. Actually, this doesn't have that much. So, oh yeah, no. So it does. Because I'm trying to provide context for the Judicator album. Okay. So, Western Rome falls, Eastern Rome keeps going. Now, within a lifetime of Western Rome falling, if I remember right, I'm pretty sure I do, you had Emperor Justinian come on the scene. And he's a fascinating baby boy because he basically inherited the throne from his uncle Justin, Emperor Justin, who was a general. And this is a great rags to riches story because Justin, if I remember right, brought Justinian with him to actually, I'm not committing to that. I'm not sure if he brought him with him, but so Justin rose through the ranks. And long story short, he ended up becoming emperor. How cool is that? He didn't have any children, so he kind of latched on to his nephew Justinian. I think his name was Justinianus. Cool. I have an icon of him. That's really cool. But so the thing to keep in mind is this is in like 550, no, 530s. The 530s, I think it's 530s. I'll answer your question later, BFP. That's a good question. a good question that leads us down another rabbit hole. I'm going to get through this first. Okay, so basically, point is, when Justinian's on the scene, you have people who were still alive during the time of the Western Roman Empire. And the Eastern Romans, they felt that, like, we're going to get it back. Don't you worry. We're going to reunite the empire. We're going to bring it back. So Justinian was the first emperor to really try. I think there was one other try, and I don't know if I mentioned that in here in the lyrics in Song 2. Because there was if I remember right, it was a naval assault on Alexandria. We'll get to it eventually. Not that long from now, actually. I've almost got the context set up. I think it's pretty much set up. I will have to pee at some point because I just drank a tea and now I'm going to open up an ice drink. Okay. Context. Yeah. So Justinian, he was lowborn, and when he came into power after his uncle died, he really started to shake up the system in a number of ways. One of the big ways that really pissed people off and ostracized a lot of people was there was no basically like buying your way into positions of power. It was a meritocracy based on merit. Who could you get the job done? So that pissed off a lot of the establishment elite. And on top of that, there was already a lot of resentment against not necessarily Justin because he was a general, but Justinian was not. I mean, he was a hard worker, very smart, well-educated in theology and matters of state and all that kind of thing. But yeah, and then the big one too is he married Theodora, who was, what would you call it, an actress, a courtesan, kind of like an escort, an adult entertainer. And so that was like, oh my gosh, I'm clutching my pearls. So that's basically the context of the album. So the album isn't about Justinian, but I felt it necessary to provide context for what was going on with the Eastern Roman Empire and where it had come from and what they were, what kind of mindset they were in. So as far as Belisarius is concerned, the album's about him. And I forget how he came to power as, no, I do know. I'm not going to go over it, though, because it's not really Go Blues. Joseph knows. Because, there were two major factions in Constantinople. It might have been something empire-wide, but there were chariot races, and each side, green and blue, had their own kind of gangs, and they functioned as sort of a strong arm of, whichever team the emperor favored, that team would pretty much exercise his will, kind of like an unofficial gang to enforce and that kind of thing. And, if you favored the blues, then you might let them get away with crimes or something. But just look up the Nika revolts. I'm not going to go into that today. So, Belisarius, this is where the album begins. Belisarius, through the Nika revolts, I think was elevated to basically commander of the East. Now, the Persians had violated what was called the Eternal Peace. You could make arguments that the Byzantines violated it because they had an agreement not to build in certain places. Basically, the Romans were paying off the Persians to guard certain areas of the frontier, if I remember right. I'm saying if I remember right a lot. That's because I want to be accurate. And basically, I think that the Romans built a couple of fortresses. I'm pretty sure they built one called Dara, because this is important. And so that was like the excuse of the Persians to invade, and invade they did, and that is pretty much where the album starts. Not quite, but so Belisarius is most known for his victory at Dara, which, if you have time sometime, look it up. It's a very fascinating, really interesting battle, but masterful the way that Belisarius handled this defensive battle. And he beat the Persians, and it was a surprise victory. But what happened after that is the Persians started to withdraw, and Belisarius kind of kept on their tail, like, get out, okay? We're going to make sure that you leave. And what happened is, if I remember right, it was on Pascha, Easter, and or it was around Easter time. But basically, the gist is this. So this is where we're at: the Battle of Callinicum. And for you 9 people, I mean, people can come back and, I'm going to give you the song titles now, or as we go along. Just don't go out and share it on Facebook or something like that. Like, let it be a surprise. But I'm not threatened by telling 9 people, just don't be a douchebag. And even if the track listing gets released, it's not going to be the end of the world. Yeah. But so the album is called Let There Be Nothing. That's no secret. The first song on the album is called Let There Be Light. And there's no reason for that. The last song on the album is called Let There Be Nothing. So I wanted to bookend it. Let There Be Light. So the song basically covers the Battle of Callinicum. And so what happens is they're keeping pressure on the Persians to, get out. And it's on or around Pascha, Easter. And the men under Belisarius are like, we want to go. We want to go. We want to fight him. We want to get him. And he's like, guys, can we not? And they're like, we demand it. Because I think the Persians were looting on their way out. But I forget why, but the men were really bloodthirsty. They wanted to get the Persians. So basically it came down to attack or don't attack and potentially lose control of my men. So Belisarius was like, okay, we'll attack. So Belisarius attacked the Persians, and they got spanked. The Romans got spanked. Totally spanked. Now, what I just told you might have been a lie. Not a lie, but it may not be the way that things happened, because there's good reason to believe that Belisarius blamed his men for his mistake. So the thing is, so during Pascha, I think it must have been before Pascha, because I think you break the feast on Pascha, or break the fast. But basically, when they fought, they were during a fast, so they couldn't, they weren't as strong. But so what I did with the story is, there's 2 sides. Did Belisarius really get pressured into the fight with his men, by his men? Or did he lead the attack of his own volition, get spanked, and then blamed it on his men to avoid taking responsibility? I took this option because it provided an opportunity for growth. And here's the thing too, it's like, we're not going to know 100%. So there's an element of, fiction? So, that's what I chose to go with in my own take on the story. What would be most interesting to me if I were to turn this into a movie is basically the perspective that I'm taking with this. So Belisarius, in my version of the story, chose to attack, got spanked, and decided to blame it on the men to save his own skin. Now, back into historically accurate, we know this, he goes back after that. The Persians leave. I think they negotiated a peace. But Belisarius is scot-free. So Yeah, so I'm not sure how to handle. I mean, this is track one, Let There Be Light. So I think I'll just read the lyrics. Again, like secrets and stuff, I don't feel terribly threatened by that. I feel like a lot of people don't even care about lyrics. I don't know about a lot. I suspect it's a minority of people who actually like are into the lyrics, you know. So I'm going to go ahead. It goes, only recently I failed, and yet I bore no punishment. So here's a tale, a battle lost, the fields beside Kalinicum, which is where the battle was fought. The Persians swept into our land, and on Easter Day we came in range. The men were firm, they wanted blood. On this, a day meant for the Lord. But bound to fast, they tired quick, and so the Persians rolled us up. Awoken from the mist of haunted dim-lit daydreams, I sharply snapped back into focus. Our ally Hilderic in former Roman Africa has been imprisoned by a usurper. Ocean waves slap the hull, sunbeams yonder pierce the clouds. Our destiny, to liberate our kinsmen, who, as of now, face persecution. Ha Stavros Nika, oh let there be light. I'll bear my cross of guilt and walk up to the mark. Ha Stavros Nika, oh let there be light. May I redeem myself from Kalinicum. I realize there's some stuff in here that I haven't talked about, but I'll get to it after this. Actually, no, I'll stop here because I need to bring you up to speed. So, our ally Hilderic in former Roman Africa has been imprisoned by a usurper. That's basically what happened. So, Eastern Rome was still going, and in the rubble, in the ruins of, not really, in the ruins of Western Rome, you had the Ostrogoths, the Goths, the Vandals start to like rebuild and take over and style themselves, you know, the head honchos there. So, as it concerns us, all you really need to know is that the Ostrogoths are in the Italian peninsula and the Vandals are in North Africa. So, long story short, if I remember right, it was the king of the Vandals in North Africa was imprisoned by a usurper named, not Amatus. I don't know that you need to know the name. This is going to be a long podcast again. You don't need to know the name of the usurper. If he comes up again, I'll let you know. But basically, so the usurper imprisoned Hilderic. Hilderic had good relations with Constantinople. So it was like, this is our chance. This is our excuse to go back and try to retake Africa. And so they did that. So the album begins with Belisarius on a ship getting ready, on a ship headed toward North Africa. So ocean waves slap the hull, all that kind of thing. That's really, really beautiful, good language. But yeah, so I started the album with Belisarius and his wife, Antonina, and his godson, Theodosius. These are the three prime characters in the story. So our mission is holy, as the Vandals permit piracy and persecute the Orthodox. This isn't vainglory, but rather just reconquest. So Gelimer, your time is nigh. That's the king of the Vandals, the usurper king. So Gelimer, your time is nigh, 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 nigh. Only higher and more Hansi-like. Ocean waves slap the hull. Sunbeams yonder pierce the clouds. On either side, my godson and wife stand proud. And back at home, our daughter waits. He and Antonina had a daughter named Johannina. And I wanted to name our first daughter Joanna. And Rachel's like, I do not want our daughter to be named Joanna. And I'm like, that's such a cute prairie name. It's so beautiful. Ha Stavros Nika, oh let there be light. I'll bear my cross of shame and march on through the mire. Ha Stavros Nika, oh let there be light. May I redeem myself from Kalinicum. Golden rays crack the clouds, shimmering shoreline smiles. Oh my God, hear our prayers, condescend out of mercy. Give us strength, give us courage, let us fear you evermore. Golden rays crack the clouds, shimmering shoreline smiles. And my wife, Antonina, may she ever be by my side. So that's the first song. I don't know if I should. No, I'm going to plow through this. I'm not going to get distracted. I'm going to come back to your questions, I promise. But I'm going to get through this, and it's not going to be terribly long, I don't think, because I'll get into a groove. So, and I'll be less of the historian and more of the storyteller once everything starts to lay itself out. So that's "Let There Be Light." Now the next song is called "Tomorrow's Sun." Well, all right. So first, so the big things driving Belisarius in this album, there's like the outer goal, which is like in film analysis or whatever, it's called a red herring. It's like Luke Skywalker wants to destroy the Death Star, but what he really needs is to be at one with the Force. So the outer goal is kind of the thing that helps drive the inner goal in a way. So Belisarius' outer goal is to reconquer Western Rome. His inner goal is driven by this kind of shame and embarrassment that he lied about what happened at Callinicum. And the other inner motivator is going to come into play here in the next two songs. The song after this song. So the Romans land in North Africa, and at Belisarius' direction, they are told, like, this is not a regular conquest, all right? This is not a regular campaign. Our goal is to reunite Rome. There are people who are here who remember living as Romans under the rule of Roman emperors. And so we got to keep in mind, we got to treat these people all right, because this is going to have to last. These are Romans. We're liberators, not conquerors. So with that, they sweep into North Africa, and instead of looting and pillaging and stealing, they trade. And as a result of that, all the people start like, oh, okay, they come to the Romans and they here, buy my radishes. And yeah, so it's going well. And then the battle that they have outside of Carthage is very interesting, because I don't know if I should explain all of this. I'll read the lyrics and then I'll clarify whatever I have to, because we're already 40 minutes in, and I'm like, okay, it's probably going to go 2.5 hours, whatever. So the track 2 is called "Tomorrow's Sun." We'll play it smart, no brash attack. We'll land from afar and close the circle again. So keep in mind, we're liberators, not conquerors. The sun, its rise is gradual, yet fills the sky. And we, alike the sun, will rise and dominate the land below. Kill, maim, burn. I wanted to reuse that from The Last Emperor. I like having liberties to, the callbacks. Here confusion reigns, kill, maim, burn, at ad decimum. Ad decimum, that's the battle. Outside Carthage, my good friend John the Armenian, he smashed the Vandals and killed the king's brother. So his friend John the Armenian gets into a fight with some Vandals, and he ends up killing Gelimer's brother. And then they go somewhere else or fall back or whatever. Continue on with the song. So, outside Carthage, my good friend John the Armenian, he smashed the Vandals and killed the king's brother. When Gelimer, the Vandal king, came on the scene, he fell to his knees. My brother, he lies so broken, torn, and glassy-eyed. The sad king, he stopped his army there to bury Amatus. Amatus was his brother. John, the Armenian, pursued the king of the Vandals for days, while I, Belisarius, marched and took Carthage. Open arms greeted us at the gate. Tomorrow's sun will rise again on African Rome. This is such a good song. Okay, so that one's fairly straightforward. There's so much I could go into, but I'm going to try to... Okay, so the next song is called Strange to the World. And this is such a good song. This is such a good song. Oh, this is like in my top 3 favorite Judicator songs ever, I think. Jordan says, my favorite big time. This is such a good song. Okay, Strange to the World. So, tomorrow's sun has come and sets behind the western sands. A messenger approaches and says that John is gone. John the Armenian. A stray arrow brought him down. Belisarius, he chokes on his tears. Who is responsible? Who let this happen? The messenger reports it was one of his own. Killed by friendly fire, his dying words were, "Punish not the man who killed me by mistake." Oh, dude, I have goosebumps. I literally have goosebumps. This is so sad. And this is all true. This is all true. Is this injustice? I feel powerless. There's no one here for me to jail or execute. I'll erect a shrine for him. I'll pay the price. For years hereafter, I'll take good care of him. And he did. He erected a shrine for his friend, John the Armenian, and he paid for its upkeep for the rest of his life. That makes you want to cry, dude. You lose one of your best friends. Oh, man. And there's nothing you can do. Your friend was a better person than you, probably, who might have killed the person who accidentally shot your friend. Your friend who got killed by friendly fire was like, don't kill him. Don't punish him for a mistake. Man. My only solace, my loving wife. Dear Antonina, please comfort me. Ah, but wait. A disgruntled slave brought chambermaids to kneel before me and tell me. Tell me what? It never rains, it pours on me. The blood within me boils. Sing hallelujah. They say they saw my wife lay with my own godson. How could they sin against me? Sing hallelujah. Am I not just? I have the right to have her killed. Sing hallelujah. Am I like Christ, who so forgave the adulteress from stoning? Sing hallelujah. I'll forgive her, Antonina. But what can be said then for Theodosius, his godson? This is a woman who cheated on her husband with her godson. Now, brief aside, in Orthodox Christianity, it might be the same. It was for the first 1,000 years. All right, so we'll call it traditional Christianity. Becoming related as a godchild or godparent was serious business. You were like spiritual family in a way. It was so serious that if Rachel and I, for example, had the same godparent, we couldn't be married because it would be considered incest. So, in the eyes of their contemporaries, Antonina had committed basically incest with Theodosius against Belisarius. Bro. Oh my gosh. How filthy. But so I really found it interesting. So there's this part in the New Testament where the Jews, I think it was, are going to stone a woman for adultery. And Christ comes in and basically, you all probably know, he's like, who among you is without sin? Let that person cast the first stone. Everybody drops their stone because they're like, ooh, you know what? You're right. And Christ forgave the woman, the adulteress. He saved her from stoning, and he forgave her. And back to the Arian controversy. An angel can't forgive sins. A creature can't forgive sins. Only God can forgive sins. So I wish. So here's the thing too, like with Arian theology, all we really know about Arianism is what other people wrote about it. Because after the First Ecumenical Council, it was ordered that all of Arius' writings should be burned. So unfortunately, we don't have really anything about his theology. But anyways, so Belisarius remembers that passage in the New Testament, and he's like, you know what? If I'm going to work on myself, I need to forgive her. So he forgives Antonina. But what can be said about Theodosius? She came from the streets and worked as an actress, but my dear godson should have known better. I gave him a life, and now he betrays me. Nothing could stop me. Think of the ways I could inflict pain. It's coming down to the wire. Time to decide how I should proceed from here. How I can feel that she is hurting, how I can feel that she's not proud of herself. And life is lonely, always being apart. And yet I've managed to stay loyal to her. Rumors begin to gather traction, and I am regarded as a pawn of my wife, a great commander, but a puppet to her. It's not surprising, though. Virtue seems strange to the world. Oh, that's where the song title comes from. So yeah, part of more context, Antonina was basically the informant to Empress Theodora. So there's ideas of why Antonina always campaigned, like went with Belisarius, whether it was because she was lonely and she wanted to be with her husband, or whether it was orders from Theodora, like go with Belisarius and report to me if anything bad happens, because there's always the worry that a general who gets too popular, too powerful, is going to say, you know what, I could make a really good emperor, and he becomes a usurper. It's happened before, and it happened after this. So, yeah, there are different ideas. Yeah, so that takes us near the end of the song. The might of Africa will fade, all our monuments will dissolve, and there's nothing here that will remain. But yet our lives still somehow resound. Our fleeting lives are meaningful. Nothing you do doesn't matter. Every choice you make moves this world toward hell or paradise. And I'm very big on that kind of philosophy, that you create the world. Well, what am I trying to say? I don't know if I want to get into that now. Just, I want to keep going with this. So the next song, track 4, is called Autumn of Souls. All right. So what happens here is all of that's happened. He forgave Theodosius. He forgave Antonina. All right. Well, long story short, they get another excuse, heaven sent, to invade the Italian peninsula, to go fight the Ostrogoths. They had their excuse to declare war, and so they did it. So now this is them sweeping into Italy. So this one's called Autumn of Souls. Sand that once was held in Roman hands slipped through their fingers. But now their second chance is in my hands. We're reuniting Rome. March, join in the new crusade. Hail, take up your old mantle. March, after the darkness fell, Roman lights returning. March, join in the new crusade. Hail, standing at Naples' gates, the gates of Napoli. March, this is your time to choose glory or decay. Nothing numbs the pain for me. I try in vain to carry on, Autumn of Souls. Nothing frees my heart from her. This tether is hooked into my core. Autumn of Souls. Death before and on Naples' walls. Weeks have gone by, but to no avail. We need a break, for time is short, and winter is on the horizon. I guess I do have to do the chorus. March, join in the new crusade. Hail, standing at Naples' gates. March, needing a safe way in. Now we may have found it. March, into the aqueduct. Hail, sappers are digging deep. March, clearing a path for men to slip into the city. So what happened is they found an aqueduct that led into the city because they're besieging Naples. And this guy's like, if we work into this aqueduct, we could fit people in here. But that's going to be awfully loud. So what Belisarius did, he's like, I got you, fam. You guys go work on the aqueduct. So Belisarius got his men together, and they made a big ruckus, and they like ran up close to the wall, as close as you could without getting shot by arrows. And so all the people in Napoli were like, like, are they attacking? What's going on? They're on edge. Oh, but this was all a ruse to get their attention And of course, they're slapping shields and shouting to cover up the sappers who are opening up the way into this aqueduct. So what happens is, march, join in the new crusade. Hail, this is your last warning. March, open the gates or else we will sack the city. March, we have a way inside. Hail, no need for more to die. March, I'd rather this be bloodless, but Naples will be ours. So he sent them a letter. He was like, look, I don't want to fight anymore. I don't want to kill any of you. And I mean, if you let us in, nobody else has to die. And I can control my men from sacking the city. But if you don't, I have a way inside, and I won't be able to keep a short leash on my men as I would otherwise if we came in peacefully. So, and the Napoleons, I don't know what you'd call them. The people of Napoli were like, your mother's a hamster and your father smelled of elderberries. So Belisarius is like, okay. So I don't know how many men, but a lot of guys went in through the Neapolitan, the ice cream. So a lot of guys snuck in through the aqueduct, and they killed people and opened up the gate, and sure as heck, Belisarius' men swarmed into the city. A lot of people died, and the city was sacked, and I think it took a couple days for Belisarius to get control, and it was like, I tried to tell you guys, man. And kind of like with, what was it? It falls to Jerusalem in The Last Emperor. This is just the way it was. Like, when your city gets sacked, that was just what happened, man. That's just what happened. So you can't really complain. That's like saying, how dare, like the founding fathers were terrible people because they owned slaves. It's like, okay, fair point. But I don't know. I'm not saying that morality is subjective because I don't believe that it is, but I'm saying that to judge people in the past by the standards you have now seems disingenuous. It seems unfair. So the next song, let me make sure. This is cool. I think this is my favorite song on the album. I swear I'm going to get back to your guys' questions and comments, but we're going over the halfway mark here. So, and I promise the rest of this will go by relatively quickly after this. Okay, so the next song is called Gloria. And I'll have to stop at some point in here, but it's so good. The story here is so good. 60 years have come and gone since Rome did fall, since glory reigned, since Rome was ruled by Romans. By invitation of the Pope, we took it back. The Pope was like, come on into Rome. Great, let's do it. Rome will be Roman once again. So by invitation of the Pope, we took it back, not as conquerors, but as liberators. Gloria, galloping homeward. Gloria, valiant general. He's charging desperate shattered. What is this? He's charging desperate shattered. But we just entered the city on peaceful terms. What is this? It's a foreshadowing, you dummy. I'm kidding. Light of light, heart of hearts. And then here's where our female vocalist comes in. While he's gone, there is nowhere that I can go home. So that's Antonina saying, while he's gone, there's nowhere that I can call home. Light of light, heart of hearts. Where he's gone, there is no guarantee he'll come back. Hearing word that Ostrogothic armies were near, Belisarius led his elite guard to go see. But, so they heard that Ostrogoths were near. They're like, yeah, we'll go check it out. We'll go scout. And I'll just continue with the lyrics. So yeah, so hearing word that I just pretty much explained exactly what the lyrics said, so that was kind of redundant. Hearing word that Ostrogothic armies were near, Belisarius led his elite guard to see. Ambushed from the rear, a foe soon recognized him. Ah, that's Belisarius. And he told the Ostrogoths, fire on the white-faced horse. Light of light, heart of hearts. Arrows fall like a torrent of rain from arrows fall like a torrent of rain from the sky. Light of light, heart of hearts. Protect him from a single of a myriad of deaths. Okay, so they go out to investigate. They get ambushed. One of the Ostrogoths is like, that's Belisarius. Fire on the white-faced horse. Like, what's his name? That guy from Invasion of the Body Snatchers. When he's like, that's a good movie. It has Leonard Nimoy in it. Okay, so they get ambushed. They fight their way out of the ambush. And they get back to the Roman gates. Only thing is, they're so bloodied and dirtied up. The people on the gates are like, you don't look like ours. We don't recognize you. We're not opening the gates. This could be a ploy. You could have been slaughtered, and the Ostrogoths put on your armor and is now trying to get away into the city. I don't think so. Sorry, Charlie. So the Roman guards can hear them pleading, open the gates. It's Belisarius. Gloria. They don't recognize him. Gloria. They won't open the gates. And still the Goths are encircling. Gloria. The general turns round. Gloria. Dying in glory. They faced the Goths in a last charge. Belisarius was like, you know what? I'm not going to die sitting on my ass on his horse. I'm not going to die sitting here pinned between a rock and a hard place. I'm not going to die like a bitch. So Belisarius is like, all right, guys, if we're going to die, have at them. So the thing is, the Ostrogoths were like, easy. Let's go pick up the pieces. Let's go kill him. So they were not in really orderly. They weren't battle ready. They thought they got too comfortable. So they were kind of spread out, dispersed, kind of moseying on down. And then out of nowhere comes Belisarius like, and they surprise them with such a fierce charge that it just like shocks them. And like all the Ostrogoths are like, what the hell? And they just like, So light of light, heart of hearts. Seeing them charge the Goths with such savage success, then they knew these were allies at least. Let them in. The people on the gate were like, this doesn't look like a ruse anymore. Like anybody who's attacking the Ostrogoths like that, come on in. So they let him in. Most blessed, most high, Antonina runs to embrace her husband again. So this, I just wanted to communicate that it's interesting because like I had never been in like a real honest to God relationship until I met Rachel. So really it wasn't until I met Rachel that I really started to, I had been cheated on before, but it was like, oh, we're dating, boyfriend and girlfriend, like, ha 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 ha. Like, it wasn't like we were emotionally invested, although it did hurt and it did feel like a betrayal, bro. But this was really interesting because I had a whole bunch of thoughts and ideas about loyalty and fidelity and adultery and that kind of thing. Like, I don't know, like it was a new subject to me. And so this was interesting. Like your first reaction, and the other thing too is there's a handful of people close to me who have had parents who have cheated on each other, and some have stayed together and worked it out, and some have just divorced. And the interesting thing is, yes, you will get hoes and man hoes who just gonna hoe, male and female hoes. But there are also times where, for example, the one partner is not fulfilling the other partner, not even physically, but like emotionally or with your time and attention. Like so that can alienate a partner. And so it's like, basically what I'm getting at is that it's horrible what Antonina did. There's no justification, no excuse. It was horrible. And she shouldn't have done it. But there's a reason. You could just be a hoe. You could. But I think a lot of the time there's a reason too. Especially with marriages between people who have otherwise been perfectly nice, and perfectly good relationship. Something goes wrong. Somebody doesn't feel emotionally satisfied, or I don't know, maybe physically satisfied. Yeah, I'm sure. But I just wanted to tell Antonina's side of the story, that she's not a monster. In fact, I read a book called Antonina, a Byzantine Slut. And it's kind of like a fiction. I think a fiction is not true, right? So it was basically like they took real history and like fictionalized bits of it to make it like a novel. And so it's historically accurate, and it was really good. But okay, so okay. Next song, track 6, Amber Dusk. Where are we? I want to make sure that I give you the context. Don't worry, guys, we're almost through. Okay, yeah, I got you. So, yes. So we're still in Rome with Belisarius, and it goes, failure follows every step, and here is the last leap that I took. Again, no punishment, just like Callinicum. This is about the Battle of Rome, which the Romans lost. For months, we've withstood Gothic siege, because the Goths were like outside of Rome, besieging Rome. So for months, we've withstood Gothic siege. We're hanging on by a thread. All of these new recruits we've pressed, they're not prepared. And yet, I saw it fit to test their mettle. So this is another, it's like if you resist a sin, and then later on, the sin pops up, but in a new creative way. And you're like, maybe I will sin. Kind of like this. So Belisarius lied, in my story at least, my rendition. He lied about the truth of Callinicum to save his skin. And now here's the Battle of Rome, which are suspiciously similar circumstances. Because what happened is he pressed all these new recruits from the city of Rome, because the city's under siege. It's not like you can go outside of the city and like do farm work and stuff. So they're like eating dogs and cats and mice and boiling shoes. And they're like, we can't work. Like, what do we do? And it's like, idle hands, do nothing good. So Belisarius was like, if you guys are not going to do anything, we'll make soldiers out of you. Okay, well, everybody's been sitting on their butts for months. And they're like, you know what? Let's just go kill them. We're the Romans. Let's do it. Let's go beat them. So again, Belisarius is like, all right. So Belisarius takes his army, which includes drafted Roman citizens, out to face the Goths. Blessed am I, standing aright, gazing upon the fields below. So many times I could have died. Why am I preserved? Cursed am I, turning away, gazing upon the streets below. I see her once again. With him, Antonina smiles. So, in my fictionalization of this, Belisarius is looking down on the fields below, on the wall, and then he looks and turns around on the other side of the wall, and he sees Antonina strolling along with Theodosius. She smiles, and it's like, she's back to her old tricky-dicky ways, isn't she? So out of anger or something, this is, you won't find this in a history book. This is a liberty taken. But it's like, there's an emotional element to it now. So I call the men to arms and shout, Hostavros Nika! We sweep into the fields below. The battle is raging. The new recruits had pushed them back, but chose not to pursue. Instead, they chose to loot the camps. This cost us victory. So that's all accurate. They pushed back the Goths, and then the citizens were like, loot! And they started looting the camps. And the Goths were like, huh. They regrouped, and they were like, we could just sweep in there and take them out. So they did. They swept in, and they swept out the Romans from their camps. And so all the citizens got pushed back embarrassingly. This cost us victory. Amber dusk. Again, it happened again. It burns, shredding my heart. Oh, it burns. Again, I'll have to blame the men. Report that they pressured me into the fight. Okay, so now this skips way ahead. Like they basically retake Rome and the Italian peninsula. I'm not going to get into that. It's long. Watch the extra credits, the extra history series that I linked to you above there. So what happened is they retook the Italian peninsula, and the king was he sent a messenger to Persia because he's like, wait a minute, all of Justinian's armies must be here. So I need to take pressure off of the Italian peninsula. So send a messenger to Persia, and maybe they'll put pressure on the east, and then the Romans will leave to go defend their eastern border. So you had, I think it was Khusro, Emperor Khusro of Persia. He was like, okay, so he found an excuse to go to war with Justinian, and he did. And so Justinian recalled Belisarius to Syria to deal with the Persians. Okay, so now recalled to Syria, he took upon himself a new restraint. With shepherd-like protectiveness, he'd guide his men to fight the Sassanids, the Persian Sassanids. You see a change in Belisarius' activity as a general from this point forward. He never does that again, where he gets pressured into a fight and then he blames it on the men. That doesn't happen again. And in fact, what happens is this campaign against the Syrians, he's much more cautious, and he really, really works to preserve his men's lives to the point where he won't engage in a battle unless he knows that he can win it, or that it will have some meaningful impact. And, that's the way it should be anyways. But what I'm saying here is that he didn't really engage. He really focused on outmaneuvering, and so they try to go here and he's like, and they go here and he's like, and there's some other interesting stuff at work here, which is that the plague during this time popped up again. And so I think both armies were also kind of afraid to fight each other because they might have the plague. Whew. Anyways, his young stepson, Antonina's son, had kind of taken on Belisarius as a father figure, because Antonina, of course, was married before Belisarius, and I don't know what happened to her husband, but Photius, Antonina's son, Belisarius' stepson, was like, Daddy! Who could blame him? I would be too. But so meanwhile, his young stepson Photius was stationed in the capital, where Antonina and Theodosius were left behind. And there he saw his mother and Theodosius renew their love affair. And then here we have a male guest vocalist come in, and he says, "Oh, spider mother, while you're at play, Belisarius fights off invaders." I got that wrong. "And yet you would soil your husband's bed with another man. I'm yours no more." That's a really gross thought, that your wife is doing it with another man in your bed. Another man's ass cheek sweat, his ass sweat, getting imprinted on your bed. The fluids, the sweat. Oh my gosh. I thought that was and yet you would soil your husband's bed with another man. That's not like R-rated, but it's like, you can take a banana and a donut and do this, and it's like, oh my gosh. It's like, you can do R-rated things with PG material. So that I don't know why that just resonated with me. Not in a good way, but it's just like, man. Anyways, so Photius, he's like, You have harmed Daddy for the last time. So Photius rode to tell the man who took him as a son that he had been betrayed. The rolling hills of Syria are black against the glorious ember-laden sunset. Step by step he strode and knelt before the man, Belisarius. There, I, Photius, spoke it all, and after, silence fell. And after much endured, the man, Belisarius, finally broke. As darkness falls, Belisarius turns round to face his stepson. As darkness falls, his heart is hardened. No more could he now endure. As darkness falls, the two embraced and swore to uproot the decay. As darkness falls, the two declared this mire of sin would be drained. Drain the swamp, hashtag Trump 2020. Drain the swamp, though. Seriously. So that's Amber Dusk. It's picking up now. It's gonna go here now. The next song is a wonderful song with harmonies that remind me of Ghost. Ghost AD. I forgot. Did they have to change their name from Ghost to Ghost AD? That's funny. Hey, Liz. So the next song is called The Way of a Pilgrim. And there's such a moral component to this story. It's a very morality-driven, I guess you'd call it a morality play, huh? Well, the book that really... I was reading another book called The Way of a Pilgrim, and this book was really interesting. Really interesting. I don't think they even know who wrote it, but it's some book from Russia. Ghost BC, thank you. But so I could not think of a song title for this for the life of me. Track number 7. And I was like, all right, maybe, because you try to find, like, sometimes, like, you know exactly what the song's going to be called from the beginning. And sometimes it's like, oh, man, you find, like with Strange to the World, there's this momentous part of the song that it just, like, it delivers, like, what the song is all about. And it's like, virtue seems strange to the world. It's like, that's it, strange to the world. That's perfect. This one, I was like, it's not that it's a unorthodox song, pun unintended. It's just, I couldn't find out what to call it. Like the revelation of the human heart, into the maw, those were working titles. I couldn't think of it, but I'm like, what is this song like? What is this album really kind of about in a way? And kind of like, again, with last podcast, like I've been trying to figure myself out morally and ethically and so much of that personal stuff. We'll get into that with the next poll question, but I was like, The Way of a Pilgrim, that's what this album is really about. It is the way of a pilgrim, not this book, but just, it's like we are here. We're here. Sorry. We're here on this earth, trying to find our way, trying to find the best way. And I don't know how your guys' early to mid 20s are, but it's like you've been held back all your life. I don't know, like people who grow up in like households that are too conservative, they're like, well, screw you, daddy. I'm going to go out drinking and sexing and all that kind of thing. So it's like, I didn't do a lot of the sexing, but I did naughty stuff. And it's like, that's not fulfilling. A hedonistic lifestyle is not fulfilling. You wake up one morning hungover and you're like, what am I doing with my life? So I'm like, this life to me is kind of like, it is the way of a pilgrim. We're all pilgrims in this life. So that's just how I feel. But yeah, so I'm like, The Way of a Pilgrim, that's a cool song title. And it kind of encompasses the spirit of what I'm trying to say with the album in a way. So this one's called The Way of a Pilgrim. But, okay. Photius, you shall take the task. Start over. You shall take the task of capturing the sly Theodosius. Wait for me before you kill him. I, on the other hand, shall wait for my wife to return, and then I'll see to it that she is arrested. Squirming, writhing pleasure consumes the two lovers. Their shadows dance upon the marble walls. Ugh. The revelation of the human heart unfurled, a gaping maw that howls and whirls, not swirls, a swirly ice cream cone. A gaping maw that howls and whirls. You're fighting the wind to keep yourself from falling back. It never stops until you're dead. Step by step, I descend from the heights that once upheld me, living life so virtuous. Think back to Strange to the World. Step by step, though, she backs away from me. This is the last time you will so betray me. Kicking, screaming terror consumes my lovely wife. Her shadow thrashes against the prison walls. The revelation of the human heart unfurled, a gaping maw that howls and whirls. Your fingers are holding on to every crack and jag. It never stops until you're dead. Photius swiftly captured him, Theodosius, my dog-like godson, and for a brief time I was clear. Justice had been served. But then the Empress, Theodora, heard the news and called us to their court. Could this be providence of God? Resist him! Trembling, furious maelstrom within the general's heart. This would be his last chance to assert control. The revelation of the human heart unfurled, a gaping maw that howls and whirls. I'll capture and murder the bastard. No remorse. It never stops until you're dead. Kind of what I was trying to communicate in there is like this propensity, if I'm using that word right, to sin, this like you want to kill, you want to cheat, you want to lie, you want to steal, you want to hurt other people's feelings, but it's the easy way out. But it's something we're all drawn toward, that dark, cathartic release. And that never stops until you're dead. It's a fight, a lifelong fight against your lesser self. And that's the way of a pilgrim for me. The final track on the album, an 8-track album, is Let There Be Nothing, the title track of the album. Turn my heart into a stone, let me sink. I've turned my suffering into a cause for hate. By his decree, Emperor Justinian, we were compelled to reconcile. You cannot force my love, I'll hold on to my pain. So yeah, the Empress and Emperor called Belisarius and Antonina into their court, and they're like, what's going on? You've imprisoned your wife. This won't do. And bear in mind, too, that Antonina was a best friend of Theodora. So Theodora's like, what's up, Belisarius? Having some issues, are we? And they're like, you two are going to kiss and make up right now. And so they did, because they didn't have any other choice. Anyways, the power to choose who lives and who will die is not my right. In doing so, I kick the Lord off his rightful seat of judgment over man. God knows I've tried to fight off sinful thoughts. The crown you wear, it burns your hair and sears your skin. You cry aloud, let there be light, let there be nothing. As master, I came, yet now my tone is changed. They've torn out my guts and held me down to bleed. But that left me empty and open to the light. Forgive me now. I trust your providence. Meanwhile, Photius was captured and tortured. The emperor restored my godson to my wife. Can you believe that? The empress was like, you two are going to kiss and make up. And now, Theodosius, now that I've gotten you back from Photius, because Photius captured Theodosius and hid him, and he was like, I'm not going to tell you where Theodosius is. Belisarius and I had an agreement, and I'm going to hold to that. So they tortured him and eventually got Theodosius back. And then Antonina's like, Theodora's like, all right, Theodosius, you and Antonina can do whatever you want again, I guess. Oh my gosh, can you believe that? So the empress restored my godson to my wife. What can I do? The emperor's against me. Grant me only the power to change my perspective. And that's a line from The Last Emperor. Ha ha! Berries and cream. The crown you wear, it digs into your precious flesh. You cry aloud, let there be light, let there be nothing. Transformative, huh? Father, designer, instiller of fear. Not long thereafter, My wife's lover died. He died of dysentery. The bastard. He died of dysentery not too long after he was restored to Antonina. How's that for karma? Wow. Things have a way of working themselves out, huh? I'm not lying either. He died of dysentery. Look it up. No longer writhing in pleasure and joy, writhing in agony in his own filth. Because last song there was this imagery of like writhing in pleasure and joy. Now it's writhing in agony in his own filth. Father, commander, a shepherd of men, I could not go down this dread path of sin, combat the demons with fasting and prayer, flush out the swamp of filth in your own heart. Ever marching on, I feel, still we're marching on. And that's the album. So I'm going to exit out of that so I don't feel tempted to go back, because if I do, then Lord knows I'll never... Okay, so that's the album. I guess you could say it's something of a morality play. Yeah. In fact, I was looking at her Metal Archives page again, and it's like, what does it say? I was thinking about Blind Guardian reference. Uh-oh. What did you spot, Joseph? Whenever we rip off Blind Guardian, we try not to have it be in a bad way. In fact, I remember one, we were talking to Hansi, and I was like, so what do you think about Savage Circus and Persuader? You know, because they kind of like rip you off. And he was like, no comment. Joseph, yeah, you got it right. The ending of Let There Be Nothing is kind of reminiscent of, I think it's a Dark Passage on Nightfall in Middle-earth, where it's like that dun 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 dun. It's like, oh, so good. Anyways, so the lyrical themes, according to Metal Archives, historical concepts, existentialism. After this album, I would add morality. Because come to think of it, that's kind of a recurring theme as well. It's kind of weird, like, not that I'm like obsessed with like my legacy, but it's like, I don't know, you go to like, what? We'll go to Blind Guardian next. It's like, what do people know? You think Blind Guardian, you think like, oh, Lord of the Rings. So lyrical themes for Blind Guardian, epic tales, legends and myths, fantasy, Tolkien, literature. So I don't know. We're the history band or the cancer band. But something kind of cool too is what I want, thinking of a legacy. This is where I am thinking of a legacy in a way, is like, and something to keep things fresh. We have King of Rome, Sleepy Plesso, both historical albums that are in the same general time period. Then we've got At the Expense of Humanity, which is its own kind of thing, a fiction. And then you've got The Last Emperor and Let There Be Nothing, which are not in the same time period, but they're related. They're very closely like related. One's a Western crusade, and the other's kind of an Eastern crusade. So, yeah. In fact, people have commented that the reconquest of Justinian is kind of like a forerunner to the Crusades, which I think is kind of cool. All right. I think that's it. I'm going to go back and answer questions. An hour and a half. Okay. I think we might be 2 hours again, because there's something that I definitely did want to cover with the next option that was voted most for. But let me answer these questions here in the chat. I remember there was one about Protestantism. BFP 9000 says, real quick, do you think the Protestant Reformation was for the betterment of society, despite fragmenting Christianity as a whole? That's a tough question, because the way that you think is the Protestant Reformation was kind of entwined with humanism. I think it's Zwingli or the Austrians were big on humanism. So humanism is kind of interlinked with Protestantism in a way. And Protestantism kind of paved the way for um, a lot of liberal ideas gaining a prominent, place in civilization. I was going to say society. But I wonder. So you might say, well, like the Reformation was good because it watered down some of the bad moral and ethical things that were happening in the West. But it's like, take a step back and look at the progression of civilization as a whole. I'm not convinced that our moral development hinged upon the Protestant Reformation. I'm not convinced of that. I think, it's my feeling, that our morality would have grown inevitably. So I don't know. I can't tell you that the Protestant Reformation was bad for society. I say that, but then, all right, so let's say this. There are things about Western civilization now that I think are very harmful to the human person, that are very harmful to society. And a lot of that is, yes, a result of the Reformation in a far apart kind of way, because the Reformation did open up the spirit of revolution, sort of this new introduced democracy in a way that had not been, really present before. And there's dangers there, I think. But it's so beyond me. Like, you can tell I'm very cautious because, like, I know that there are things wrong, but you can't tell how things would have gone if the Reformation didn't happen. I mean, I think the Protestants made a mistake. I think that in their search for truth, in their search for the original Christian way of life, they missed what was right in front of them. Instead of returning to orthodoxy, they went off and did their own thing. And I think that was a mistake. And I think you can see that was a mistake based on how a lot of these churches are that are. I'm not trying to. I don't like questions like these because I don't want to smack talk anybody, or not smack talk anybody, but smack talk something that you value and cherish. It's like, I'm not here to smack talk Protestantism, but I don't know, man. It's a tough. I don't know if I want to talk. We can talk about this next time. This is a side chat question. I want to get to the polls. If you want to talk about this, BFP9000, put it in the poll for next live stream, and I can have some more coherent thoughts for you. But without you here in front of my face, like talking one-to-one, I can't judge, like, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's a tricky one. I'm not gonna go further on that one. Okay. How you guys doing? Should I take on another big one or take care of some little ones first? Any preference? I think I would go with realities of being in a band, personal struggles, friends lost. Oh, I'm sorry, Jordan. You got to go to bed? All right, watch the rest of this if you want at another time. It's only 8:30. I need to go to bed. That's my question. My answer is, oh, okay, you'll stay. All right, I'm gonna go ahead with realities of being in a band, personal struggles, friends lost, friends gained, how it has developed you to make you who you are today. And I thought about this one, and I don't think it has really affected my life in a super impactful way. Not in a way that's immediately obvious. And you may be like, what? 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 Um, I don't know. It's like, I guess the reason I say that is because in everyday life, like, there's nothing special about me. there's, I like to think that I have a good work ethic. I don't know, like, it's not like I'm a rock star, so I don't, being in a band isn't something that affects my everyday life. It does insofar as I get to see the product of the fruits of my labor pay off. And that's amazing. That's so amazing. And what's really humbling is because we don't tour all of the time. We don't play shows all of the time. So what's humbling is like with this Mad with Power Fest, I've never played to that many people in my life. Not only the number of people, not that they were all there for us, like I'm no illusions of grandeur here, but like we've never played to that many people before in my life. But not only that, but the people were so supportive. There were people like shouting the lyrics that I was forgetting. There were people who knew the lyrics better than I did. And people were like, I don't know, man. Like, if this is, it's not like we're getting famous. I watched Mastodon get famous. That was interesting. But I don't know, like how you handle getting famous. Again, not that we're getting famous, but just understand, like, it took me aback to see not only so many people supportive. You got to keep in mind, this is something very close to my heart, man. Like Tony, Jordan, Michael, myself, Austin, like all of my buddies, this is our life. And I never got support from my parents. I never really got any support. They might pay lip service or, like, I don't know. They haven't been to one of my shows in ages. And I think they only went to shows out of a sense of obligation or whatever. Like, I don't know. Just, I've got baggage. But it's like, the thing, like, you can get all the praise on the internet. And it's like, oh, wow, people like that. That's cool. Everybody loves At the Expense of Humanity. Wow, cool. Hey, but it doesn't really like, oh, it's not like, oh my gosh, Mad with Power. Even Hyperspace, which was a smaller audience, but just as excited. That it's like, is that what it is? Is that what it is to start like making it big? I don't know. I think we've just had a tiny taste. So we'll see. Like, I don't know if we play like Prog Power or 70 Tons of Metal or something. Who knows? Like, maybe we could get bigger. But basically what I'm getting at is like Bruce Dickinson, Hansi Kirsch, James Hetfield, Ozzy Osbourne, like these people who go on stage and it's like thousands of people. It's like, at what point does that become just like, yeah, that's a lot of people. I played in front of, what was I told? I think it was like 300 people, and I was like, I don't know, the coming to shows, everybody says, is the best way you can support, and that's the truth. Like, if you want to fill our hearts with love and support, come to a show. That's the best thing I can say, because whether it's 5 people or 500, it means the world. I'm not joking. It really does. Because these past 2 shows that we played, Hyperspace, Mad with Power, they were kind of life-changing. It marks growth. And I'm stunned, and I hope that continues, because I want to keep on growing, not to stroke my ego or anything, but I think part of it's validation, because that's part of something else that I questioned. Is it's like, what are my real motives? Because I'm on this big like morality kick, cleaning myself, and it's like, when somebody does a good thing with the wrong intentions, the right thing gets done the wrong way, you know? It's an empty calorie kind of situation. Um, so it's like this question caused me to really reflect, like, are my motives pure in doing this? And so I asked myself, like, if we didn't perform any more shows for the rest of my life, would I still do music? We could still get reviews because, like I said, reviews are good. It means that what you're doing is good. But no, let's even cut that out. No reviews. If I was just making music and the only people that would hear it would be like friends and family and myself and the band, of course, would I still do it? And I thought, like, yeah, I think I would. I just enjoy it so much. Um, I can't imagine myself not having music being a part of the workflow that is in my life. Um, it is not only a very effective way of expressing myself, but it's a way of getting to know myself. Because some of the thing, here's the funny thing too. It reveals things about yourself when you put yourself into something creative. It doesn't even have to be music. It can be poetry, it can be a painting, it can be a screenplay, a novel, or it could be anything creative, I think. It depends on your mindset, but you can learn things about yourself because I wrote this album not really knowing what I was going through, but when I finished the album and I like kind of combed over the lyrics, I'm like, I was going through some shit. Same with the Last Emperor. It's like each album has its own theme. It's like a mile marker where I'm like, okay, I was here during my life. Here I was going through this. Here I was going through that. And so it kind of helps to mark your progression. Do some questions. Ed Guy 24 says, I hate when people find out you're a musician, but they're shocked you're not in a band. Find out you're a musician. Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Well, see, and that's the thing. Like, if you're not in a band but you're a musician, that's pure. That's pure because if you were in it for babes or money, you know, you can get babes and money some other way. You know, you don't have to do music. I don't know what, or maybe you want to become famous, stroke your ego. It's like, of course, I want to be famous. I don't know if I want to be famous. I want to be successful. I want to play Vakken. I want to play Vakken. I don't have to headline, but I want to be like on the top billing. There's like Iron Maiden, Blind Guardian, 1, 2, 3. Even if I could just be one of the 1, 2, 3 bands before I die, I just want to be a part of the family, is what it's like. I see Hansi Kirsch, Bruce Dickinson, I see Mastodon and Gamma Ray and all of these bands, and it's like I just want to be a part of the family. I want Hansi to adopt me. I want Bruce Dickinson to be my uncle. No. Well, yeah, actually, I totally would. Sinister 11 says, I hope one day to go to one. Better chance for me if you come to Houston. Ah, so you're in Texas. We will. Judicator has plans to do an East Coast run in 2020. I'm not sure when. I'm not sure exactly how long. We won't be coming to Texas. But Dire Peril was in Texas, so I don't know how far Houston is from Austin, but you could have come seen us. Joseph says, have you ever had to step away from music because you were in a bad headspace? No. And part of that is because since Dysphoria kind of fell apart, we want to do one last single and one last farewell show. So Dysphoria is not dead, but it's embers right now. Since Dysphoria, I've been in these bands that are like, take it slow and easy and stuff. So the times that I have been in a bad headspace, it hasn't conflicted with anything. And in any case, my wife's getting into astrology and zodiac stuff. So I'm a Virgo, so I'm really good at holding in my emotions and getting work done. Um, yeah, so I'm a good actor. I can pretend I'm okay. Liz says, "Why of all musicians has Hansi been such a big inspiration?" Um, my favorite band was Iron Maiden, and then it became Blind Guardian, and um, why Hansi? I think it's because Iron Maiden. To be honest, Iron Maiden's discography is not as solid as Blind Guardian, and Blind Guardian has like more diversity. Like with Iron Maiden, you have an idea of what you're getting. And I think Iron Maiden has tried to branch out. And with their last album, I think they did. I hope with their next album, because like Iron Maiden can't be like this heavy metal, like forever. So it's like, I'm happy if Iron Maiden goes in more of like a rock direction. I'm happy. Tears of a Clown, Shadows of the Valley, like those songs, I I think I would be perfectly happy if Iron Maiden went in that direction. I know a lot of people wouldn't, but it's like Iron Maiden's not going to stop playing their classics, so those classics aren't going anywhere. I'd be happy, but I think because Blind Guardian is so much more like they're the perfect balance between I know what I'm getting with the song and progressive. So because like their song structures will be something like intro 2, verse 1, verse 2, pre-chorus, chorus, verse 1, verse 3, like oof. It always keeps you on edge, but it's still familiar. Like, I don't know how to describe it. You know what I'm saying? Blood Eagle Bailey says, art is subjective, though, so you may love a new direction and vice versa for someone else. Art is always hit or miss, and music is art. Yeah. And I've always thought, like, when things, at a certain point in my life, I would love to be a soul singer. I would love to be the white Charles Bradley. So, I don't know when that'll be available to me in my life or if it will. No, it will be. I will make it so. But I would love to be a soul singer. We're coming up on an hour 45 minutes, so I promise we'll not go longer than a half hour more. And there was more like regarding this whole thing. Like I forget exactly how I segued or what it communicated, but I was going to talk about the 2016 election and how I used to be a dick and like I went through a big growth spurt personally. So maybe I'll find a way to talk about that in a way that's relevant to a poll question next time. So I think that's a good place to stop with realities of being in a band. Oh yeah, realities of being in a band, like as far as just that goes, kind of like what I was talking about with the personal stuff, like mommy and daddy never really supported me. And everybody, all of your peers and people around you, like nobody supports you. And even if they do support you, it's like, good boy, like go get them. It's like they don't have faith in you. They don't believe in you. And fair enough. Most people who set out don't succeed. And I don't know if you could say what success is, but for me, my goal with like Judicator, Dire Peril, Principium, just music in general is I want it to consistently be good and I just want it to last. If that means we have to take a slower pace, I'm fine. Because with Dysphoria, we tried to reach for the sun and the band kind of fell apart. So I'm happy taking it slow but steady. Okay? Okay. All right, we're getting there. The next it'll go by quick from here. Tony Cordisco asks, what does a cup look like? Well, I'm going to share an ancient thing with you. I was 19 when we filmed this. I'm surprised it still exists. There's a quote in this video I'm about to share with you. It's a video called Cooking with Sammy. And you'd be like, oh, that clown video that you did a while ago? Hold your horses, Buster. This is the pre-incarnate Cooking with Sammy. This is Cooking with Sammy before the clown got down. But there's a quote in here where I was like, let's see what a cup looks like. Because I was making a lemon smoothie made with toilet water. Oh no. We're like, the first thing we're gonna make a lemon smoothie, which is already gross sounding. We're gonna make a lemon smoothie. But before we're gonna make a lemon smoothie. The first ingredient you're going to need is toilet water and Vicks NyQuil and these African diet pills. Garlic. Oh, I think Alex Ignatovic kind of ripped it off. He's doing the Suck Chef now, which you should check out. He's got some really good stuff on there. I don't really think that he's ripping us off. I'm busting his balls. Not like funny how-to video, that's not original. But the funniest thing about all of this is we made a lemon smoothie with toilet water. And we got our friend to taste it. Oh, man. I fed him and he was like, and I was like, another one? And he's like, mm-mm. So here's the link to that. Okay. So, and so the whole thing, like, let's see what a cup looks like. People were like, well, a cup looks like a cup. So, yeah, what's a cup? Let's see what a cup looks like. That kind of became a catchphrase or something, or like a recurring, like, haha, hey, let's see what a cup looks like. Let's see what a cup looks like. So that's why he asked it. The other one that has fell into disuse, which I like and I want to bring back, is when kicking ass isn't an option, it's a necessity. And that comes from my friends and I. We had this, we saw the Arnold Palmer lemonade drinks, and we were like, that looks kind of like George Bush. And we were like, hey, that would be funny if there was like a George Bush energy drink, and he was like, George Bush energy drink. When kicking ass isn't an option. When kicking ass isn't an option, it's a necessity. That's my very, very poor George Bush impression. Your dogs. We want to know about your fur children. So we have Churchill. She's our kitty. And every once in a while we would go to the animal shelter. I think you have them around the country, but it's called Humane Society. And every once in a while we would go there and just kind of go there and like, oh, look at all these puppies and kitties. But Rachel saw this one cat that had like been shaved because it had matted fur, and just like this cat looked like it had been through a blender. Rough cat. I can find a picture if you want, but this cat was so mangled. And Rachel was like, Johnny, can we get a kitty? And I was like, we already have a dog. I think we had 2 dogs at that point. I was like, yeah, we did. No, we got the dog after. So we already had a dog. And I was like, you want to get a cat? And I had never liked cats. I had never been a cat person. I had a cat when I was a kid, which was nice. But since he died when I was like 9 or 8 or something, every cat I had had an experience with since then had been negative. Like, meow. Like, I didn't like cats. And so I was like, you want to get a cat? You want to get this cat? And I just had this feeling like, we should do it. Just get the cat. But I was like, I don't know. Excuse. She was like, Johnny, I want to get this kitty. Look at her. And I was like, okay. She named Ripley, which is awesome because she came up with the name Ripley, and I'm like, Ripley from Aliens. Yeah, I love that idea, honey. That's a great name idea. So I was like, I get to name the cat. And she was like, ah! And I was like, Church. She's like, Churchill from Pet Sematary. Yes, Joseph. No, Ed Guy 24. Church reminds me of Pet Sematary. That's exactly what it was, because I'm a big fan of Pet Sematary. I think the remake that they had with John Lithgow was awesome. It's my favorite horror movie of the year. What other horror movies have come out? It Chapter 2, that was good. I don't think there have been any other horror movies to come out this year. Yeah, so I was like, okay, but I get to name her. And I'm like, Churchill from Pet Sematary, because she kind of reminded me. Oh, no, I have not seen Midsommar. I've heard it's good. I've heard it's really good. Again, I suggested this last time, and I'll suggest it again, but Bone Tomahawk with Kurt Russell. I saw that this year, but it came out not this year, so I don't count it. But that was such a good movie. I love Kurt Russell. If I was a woman, I'd want to marry a Kurt Russell. So that's Churchill. We got Churchill, and she's a sweetie. You come in, and she's like, it was like that meme that's like, it's like family wants to get a cat, and the dad's like, no. Family gets cat anyway. And then it's like dad and the cat, and they're like partying or something. It's like, that's kind of what it is. Like, Churchill's my baby now. I love Churchill. They didn't get enough into the Wendigo, I presume, with Pet Sematary. Yeah, and I don't know. If I really wanted to nitpick, I could nitpick the new Pet Sematary, but the things it did right, it just did it right, man. Read the Silmarillion and discuss it a chapter at a time. I got it, but I have not yet read past page 4. Because you got to bear in mind, I'm going to read it, and I'm going to give, basically, and this shouldn't surprise you, but I'm noticing some similarities to like Genesis in here. And I've been told as much, that there are like biblical correlations. So that's cool. If I remember right, Tolkien was a Catholic, but it's tough, guys. Like, I'm not doing this to like, oh, look at how big my dick is, but I'm working on my thesis. And so I'm running through all these different books, trying to prepare myself, and not like I can actually read all these, but I've got to read as much of them as I can to find the relevant information to learn when I can't. Anyway, so I'm really busy. But I will. So far, all I have for you is Iluvatar and creating the world through music. Yeah, it's beautiful. And I don't have much to say beyond that. An hour 55. I told you. 30 more minutes. An hour, 2 hours, 15 minutes. That's what I'm going to shoot for. How has singing in bands been different than your original expectations when you first started out? How has it been the same? I'll tell you. I expected that we could work really hard and become famous fast. Not really fast, but fast. Like, I was expecting. I remember that I was like, by the time I'm 26, we're going to be there. We're going to be at the top. Nope. I don't think fame works that way. I don't think that there are real, not in the US anyways, real machinations or something to bring metal bands to the forefront. You know, you had baby metal, and that kind of got, attention, but it's not like the 80s, Metal is just not popular culture anymore, popular music. So it's not like people are out like looking for metal bands to elevate. So it really is kind of a pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of thing. So I had illusions of grandeur, and by the time Dysphoria started petering down, I was humbled. Austin Bentley asks, how long is it? 6.5 on a good day. What was an immensely impactful quote for you? Asked by Richard Warkentine. And should I do it from memory or read it? I'm going to read it. This is the one I forgot to look up. Let me find it again. Yes. So I watched Lawrence of Arabia, and I was really captivated by it. I loved it. I want to watch it again. It's been a while. It's an amazing movie. it's a true epic. Like Ben-Hur, I really, really enjoyed Lawrence of Arabia. And so I bought the book by Lawrence, T.E. Lawrence. I don't think I have it in this bookshelf. It's in the other one. But I think it's called The Seven Pillars of Wisdom. And that's a fascinating book. I got through almost all of it. I need to finish it. But this quote is one that I don't like memorize quotes, but this one I'm like, this and Batty's monologue at the end of Blade Runner I've memorized. So this is, all men dream, but not equally. Those who dream by night in the dusty recesses of their minds wake in the day to find that it was vanity. But the dreamers of the day are dangerous men, for they may act on their dreams with open eyes to make them possible. So try to be a person who dreams by the day. With my musical endeavors, with all of my other endeavors, dream by day. Make it happen. Your mentality, your preconceived notions are going to sort of function as self-fulfilling prophecies, is how I feel. So if you just feel you're going to fail, then go fail. Go fail. But if you are like, I'm going to win, I am going to perform at Wacken. I'm going to perform at Prague Power. I'm going to perform at 70 tons of metal, 70,000 tons of 70 tons of metal. I'm going to tour Europe. I'm going to at least play one show with Blind Guardian, if not tour with them. Is all of that going to happen? Probably not. Hopefully. But if I act like, I hope it happens, don't trust hope. Don't hope. Don't hope for anything. Go out and do it. Shut up. Get to work. That's how I feel. So, humbled, realistic expectations, not going to be a rock star overnight, sure, but work hard, believe in what you're doing, and do it. Shut up, get to work. Philosophy of cognition in combination with spirituality / religion. That was asked by Stacy. I didn't know what to do with this question. And here I'm going to go back into cautious mode because I'm not a neuroscientist. I am not familiar with neurobiology, I guess you would call it. But so I asked her for clarification. And basically what she was getting at is she said that herself being a linguistics student, she started her master's in linguistics recently. And basically she's like, we don't know like where language is in the brain. Like we've looked, we don't know where language comes from, where it is. And it's like, okay, that's where what she was getting at. So what I would say is that I'm not a materialist. I do not believe that material is the only thing that exists. I believe in abstract objects like numbers, Mandelbrot sets, the self, that kind of thing. And so, killed a mosquito. I found I'm going to link you to his YouTube page too, because this is really, really good stuff. And I would like to share good things with you. I found this Orthodox philosopher, and he has a very good channel with tons of great stuff. Well, I watched this. I watched this video of his called A Refutation of Materialism via Immateriality of the Intellect. And I'm going to regurgitate the gist of it. He has these, I think they're called syllogisms. I need to study logic. That's something that I think is important. And that's something that I think is kind of responsible for why Stacy had this question in the first place, my thoughts. I don't think that we teach philosophy or logic to the people who should be getting that. I think everybody should be taught philosophy and logic. I think everybody gets kind of an introductory logic or philosophy class, as I did, but I think we could do a better job. I think it's really important. Because you can have like brain surgeons who have never taken a class on logic. And that's not scary, but it's like you see this when like brain scientists or like a heart surgeon tries to talk to you about something that's philosophy oriented. Like when Neil deGrasse Tyson, the poor guy, he said basically something to the effect of philosophy doesn't matter anymore. All right, we have science. Philosophy, like it's fine to like study like in a quaint like haha way, or whatever, but like philosophy has no bearing on our lives now. I'm like, you shut your stupid damn mouth. He's really brilliant. He's a tremendous astrophysicist from what I understand. I love Neil deGrasse Tyson, but when he said that, I was like, excuse me? But yeah, so I think they're called syllogisms. I've not studied logic. I want to. I need to. But like I said, I've got all these books here. I need to get through theology first. So it's basically all physical things are particulars. No universals are particulars. So no universals are physical things. Conclusion, no physical things are universals. Okay? No physical things are universals. Some concepts are universals. Some concepts are not physical things. Some concepts are not physical things. All concepts are in the mind. Some things in the mind are not physical things. Conclusion, some things in the mind are not physical. Some things in the mind are not physical things. All things in the mind are part of the mind. Some part of the mind is not physical. Conclusion, some part of the mind is immaterial, where parentheses, where immaterial means the negation of what is material / physical. So I think the basic idea of that train of thought is that our brain, our mind interacts with things that are not physical. And so therefore, our mind is at least in some part not physical. The immateriality of the intellect. And this is interesting just because I did some studies. Fancy way of saying I looked some stuff up on YouTube and Google. But I found one thing that's interesting, which is something called a corpus callostomy. And basically what it is, it's what separates the hemispheres of the brain. And I forget the guy's name, but this guy working to help people with seizures cut the corpus callosum that connects the two hemispheres of the brain, and there were no detectable changes in personality, but it fixed the person's seizures almost entirely. Excuse me, my cat wants in. Okay, Churchill, you finally coming in? Cute as a button. Nope, she wants out. Okay, we're almost done, guys. So, I'm not convinced that everything we are is physical or a result of physical things. I believe that there is an immaterial component to the human person. So that's my feelings. Not my feelings. It's based on stuff like this, that you can cut the corpus callosum that separates the hemispheres of the brain, and the person stays intact. And there's also the idea that people have been studying brains and they've been poking and prodding, and you can get people to like convulse. You can get people to do things physically with the brain by stimulating them. Actually, no, that doesn't work, because you can have hallucinogenics and stimulate the brain with chemicals and stuff and make people hallucinate. But I wonder, because it's like, could you chemically or physically, because because chemicals are physical. So it's like, could you use physical means to make somebody think about, I don't know, a pork sandwich? I don't know if that's even a point. Don't be like, oh, I'm going to refute you. It's like, all right, I'm not holding to that. Refute me, please. I don't know. Moving on. Open poll. Nice. Thanks, Tyler. Is a cup a bowl and vice versa? Depends on how creative you are. And I mean, you could use a cup as a bowl. You could use a bowl as a cup. I could have had my soup in a cup. I've done it before. Perfectly fine. Go for it. What would you do for a Klondike bar? Asks Cynthia. Butt stuff. Which is better, newer music or older music? Here's the thing. In general, I would say older music, and only because it seemed like music back then was produced. I mean, you can look into this now. It's like music back then was produced with means that had allowed for broader dynamic range. I'm not an audio engineer. I'm using very layman's terms to describe my thoughts, but it seems like music was produced better back then. But you run into this with movies too. It's like, man, movies back then were so much better. It's like, really? You're only aware of like the movies from back then that survived and were deemed worthy of preserving. I have looked into tons of movies from the past, and there are a lot of bad movies. I think the ratio of like adjusted for inflation, so to speak, I think we probably have about the same number of crappy bands to good bands. Everything taken into account. Because I don't know, man, I think about the underground metal scene in the US now, and I'm like, we've got some good bands, unsigned. Well, I don't know if I'll say unsigned, just like underdog bands. It's like, okay, Seven Kingdoms, Mind Maze, Tanagra, Nova Rain, Judicator and Dire Peril, Visigoth, kind of, but they're signed to Metal Blade. That's a big boy label. Unleash the Archers, they're signed to Napalm. I'll count Unleash the Archers because it's not like they've, done a world tour or a tour with Iron Maiden or something. When you tour with a band like that, it's like, okay, you're no longer in the little boy leagues. You're no longer at the children's table at Thanksgiving. So I think there's an amazing amount of quality bands. Orthodoxy and the Hero's Journey, Charleston. I thought about this one. I couldn't come up with anything really. What I did think, really trying to piece something together, is it's like kind of like what I was talking about earlier in the podcast. Like what we're doing here on Earth in this life is something of a hero's journey, because we, you could say that we start out in paradise for some of us, in the household. Some people don't. Some people's household is not a paradise. It's hell. But in an ideal situation, I'm talking, you have paradise, which is your home. And then the hero has to go out and fight the dragon. And so you go out on your own and you fight dragons throughout your life, and you start your own family, and then, starts again. And it's like you become the father, So, I mean, connecting that to orthodoxy, I would just say that like the elements that a hero struggles with, himself, outside forces, and this isn't exclusive to orthodoxy, but I don't know. I'm trying to piece it together. Okay, then kind of recanter that born good or preserve as evil and then become good. Yeah, I believe we're born innocent, but I don't believe we're born good. I don't think anybody is inherently good. Personal thoughts. Anyways, when will John run for president? I wouldn't want that kind of responsibility. Now, King, on the other hand, I could get behind that. I would only run for president if I found myself thrust into some extraordinary situation where I found that I had a sure shot, but that's not going to happen. The synergy of callbacks of your lyrics across your various musical endeavors, that's something that I find really fun. And because the way I feel is it's not just my journey in Judicator, for example, but Dire Peril too, once we get more albums. But we'll focus in on Judicator. Like, it's not just my journey. It's like everybody who's been with us and supports us and cares about the lyrics, it's like you're part of that journey too. And so I like giving these little nods and callbacks, because then people are like, oh, just like that. I appreciate that when I hear it in other bands' works. So I put into my work what I enjoy of other people's works. And I think it gives sort of a sense of cohesion and like you're moving up towards something. Now, King of Rome, Sleepy Plesso, and At the Expense of Humanity, like that marked a very distinct growth. So in At the Expense of Humanity, I made a very amazing reference to King of Rome, but normally and going forward, I don't want to reach back further past the last album. So, like, for example, Let There Be Nothing, I would not make an allusion to At the Expense of Humanity or Sleepy Plesso. I made a couple of references to The Last Emperor, and it's like, who knows, with the album that comes after Let There Be Nothing, I may make references to Let There Be Nothing, or I might not. The album that's coming after Let There Be Nothing, that is going to be totally unique. That's going to be interesting. Travis Sigler said, the scene of Artax dying in the swamp of sadness in The Neverending Story versus he can't see without his glasses scene in My Girl. The only thing I really have to say on that is somebody who is an aficionado storyteller and film analyst. Those kind of scenes you have to earn. You have to work for them, and they have to make sense. They have to do something for your character or for the story. And so, because otherwise the audience is going to feel like they're being emotionally manipulated, or somebody's trying to emotionally manipulate them. And so, like, I was talking with Rachel about the Artax scene from The Neverending Story, because I've not seen My Girl. I saw the scene that Travis is talking about on YouTube, but I have not yet seen My Girl. So the scene where Artax dies, it doesn't happen near the end. It's not like the culminating moment of the story, but it's a fairy tale, and it makes sense for where it is, and it serves a purpose in the story. So I don't feel that the Artax scene you necessarily needed to earn, because Artax was a horse. He didn't have any lines. It's not like there was some emotional connection between the two that we were privy to as an audience member anyway. So it's incredibly sad and effective. And as a kid, it was crushing. But I think that's kind of not an exemption to the rule. I would recommend everybody go watch What's Eating Gilbert Grape. That's an amazing movie. Back when Johnny Depp was good. Sorry, Johnny Depp. No, I'm too hard on Johnny Depp. I just heard that I read an article that he sometimes has an earpiece where somebody is feeding him his lines. It's like, you can't memorize your own lines, dude. Sorry. But What's Eating Gilbert Grape? Amazing movie. And a good example of a death that is well earned. And a moment, like, when it happens, like, that's an amazing, very well written movie. Months starting with Feb, I would say Febtober, Febarch, and Febcember. Liz says she named her cats Gilbert and Darnie after that movie. Oh, man. Gilbert, What's Eating Gilbert Grape? Again, Leonardo DiCaprio. He plays a mentally handicapped kid in that movie, and it's heartbreaking. He does such a good job. He's just a little boy, but he does an amazing job. Process for composing and writing lyrics, asked by Francisco. I love you, Francisco. I'm going to give you an honest answer. We're over our time. It's going to be 2.5 hours again, probably a little less. I'm going to try to not be long. Process for composing and writing lyrics. the music tells me what the rough subject needs to be. I tried a number of different subjects with At the Expense of Humanity's music, and I was like, it doesn't quite fit. But then when the cancer idea came to my mind, I was like, that's it. That's it. I had the same thing with Let There Be Nothing. A number of ideas, and it was like when it came to Belisarius, I was like, that's it. It's just, you get the feeling. You know it when you've hit it. So as far as selecting a topic, that's how it goes. The process for writing and composing the lyrics is relatively straightforward. I decide if I think that certain songs need to be in a certain order. I can talk about that with Tony. Let There Be Nothing, I don't think really needed any changes to the song order. So, and the next album that we've got coming out, there's nothing I would do to improve the song order. Tony's got it. But if that has to be done, then we can have that conversation. And the only reason I bring that up is because I want to view the album as a whole. And so I'll listen to the album beginning to end, beginning to end, beginning to end. And as I'm going through, I'll start like scatting, be like, na, 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 ma, na, ha, ha, na, 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 he, ma, na, na, ha. I'm like, that's a good melody. And so I'll listen to the album a lot of times and I'll just start developing melodies. And then what I'll do is I'll get out the computer or the notepad and I'll start writing gibberish nonsense to come up with as placeholders for the melody. So I'll be like, eat pork and pie, finger in my eye, I'll poop now, poop like a cow. And I'm like, okay, there you go. And so I basically write the album's phrasing so that I can go back independent of the music if I want. And I can be like, basically like fill in the words that I've written with words that I actually want. So if it's like, eat pork and pie, stick a finger in my eye, eat pork and pie, finger in my eye. I'm like, pass the light, give him all the might. I'm like, okay, I write that down. Just go back and fill in everything after that. Those are the official lyrics now. Yeah. Yeah, and I do that, and I just work on the phrasing, and some ideas that you have in the beginning may end up not panning out when you actually try to vocalize them, because like some words end with a vowel and they start with another vowel, and it's like going from one end to the other might be difficult, like all these little nitpicky things. Okay, Joker as a movie that is. Joker movie, A Danger to Unstable. Okay, I get you. So I went to see Joker with my wife, and that was a very unnerving movie in a good way. It was a 10 out of 10 movie for me, as far as I'm concerned. But I was tense throughout the whole thing. I didn't know what was up. Like why I was glued to my seat. And it's funny because like all this hullabaloo about like, is there going to be a shooter at one of these Joker screenings? And I'm wearing a coat because it's cold here in Utah now. But I'm wearing a coat, and at some point I'm like, I have to pee. So I stand up, and I was like, somebody in the back might be thinking, oh, this is it. Somebody stand up. Somebody is standing up. This is when he's going to pull out a gun and start shooting us. And oh no. Okay. So I walk down and I walk out and I pee and then I run back. And as I'm coming up to my seat, I'm like, what if somebody thinks, oh, he's back. He's come back. He's going to shoot us and kill us all now. And I sit in my seat, and I was like, how many people in this theater thought that I was maybe a shooter? Oh my gosh. Oh, that was weird. I've never gone into a movie with that kind of dynamic. Is my shirt inside out? My shirt's inside out. Sorry. But yeah, so I was glued to my seat. And when I left the movie with Rachel, I like got up as soon as the movie was over. Like I got up and I like walked out and I was like, "Come on, Rachel, come on." And I hold her hand and like we walk out and she's like, "So what'd you think?" And I was like, "Let's get to the car." And she's like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "Let's just get to the car. Let's get to the car." "What's wrong?" "Let's get to the." Okay, so we go to the car. We get to the car and I just like she was like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "The thing is, like, I knew people like that. I worked at a place called, I don't know if I should name it. I worked at a place that was like a, what would you say, like a boarding school or something. It was a facility for emotionally and behaviorally troubled students, kids who, like, this was the last line. This or you're going to jail kind of thing. I don't know. Like, I don't think you'd throw a 14-year-old in jail, but it was serious business. It was run pretty much like a prison. Um, but it's like I knew kids who did stuff like this. I know one kid who took a gun to school because kids were bullying him, and he wanted to show them, "You don't mess with me." It didn't sound like he was actually going to shoot anybody, but he took a gun to school, and he was gonna. And I knew other kids like this who did similar things and really bad stuff like that. And it's like they're not bad kids, but I started crying with Rachel as I was talking about this because, man, what what Joaquin Phoenix portrays in this movie and what this movie portrays is very visceral and it's very, very accurate. Because you find yourself identifying with Joaquin Phoenix, with the Joker. You find yourself identifying with the Joker, being the victim of all these horrible things, but you also feel yourself identifying with the people opposite of him, the people who are picking on him, the people who are making his life tough. You find yourself identifying with them too, because I think we've all been in a situation where you're dealing with a homeless person or somebody with a mental disability, and it may start out like, yeah, like I'm here for you, like, but then at a certain point you're like, I got to get out of here. I gotta leave, kind of a thing. Not that you're outwardly manifesting that, but in your heart you're like, I gotta get the hell out of here. I don't like this anymore. Um, so it's like, when Thomas Wayne punches him in the bathroom, it's kind of like you kind of want to punch the Joker too. And that's part of what I think this movie is really trying to communicate is that like we don't treat people right. Um and that's sad. How do you treat people? When you see a homeless person on the street, what do you think? What do you do? The two are interlinked, make no mistake. And if you think that you would not do something evil under the right or wrong circumstances, question yourself. If you were born in the 1930s in Germany, or if you were in 1930s Germany, if you had not cultivated an ability, a consistency with your morality, there's a good possibility you would have been a Nazi. There's a good possibility I would have been a Nazi if I was born at the right time and in the right or wrong circumstances. So again, like this big morality kick that I'm on, it's like don't take anything for granted. The Great Ducky, I kind of fell out of using the rubber duckies. I was gonna have a rubber ducky, but I forgot. I used to take a lot of pictures of myself with rubber duckies on my head. I should get back into that. I don't take selfies as much these days. John's thoughts on mind-altering substances like psilocybin, LSD, DMT, etc., in relation to spiritual and experiences in spirituality. I have done things that open up certain windows, and yes, you can use these kind of substances to see through windows, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? And but the thing about that is, it's almost like you're cheating the game. It's almost like unearned wisdom. unearned messages. And if you're not ready to receive a certain kind of message, you might not know what to do with it. And it's like, if you don't lay down the proper groundwork and prepare, then it's kind of like the wrong person receiving the right thing. The person doesn't know what to do with it. So I would advise against using hallucinogenics for this reason. I would say work on yourself first. Work on your own spirituality. Don't try to cheat existence. Don't try to cheat life by circumventing the natural order and going for these manufactured drugs. I think psilocybin is natural. You know what I'm saying. Marijuana is natural. You know what I'm saying. Because if you're just some asshole trying to tap into the deep recesses of your psyche or get some kind of spiritual illumination, it's like you are a spiritual baby and you want to drink a glass of like spiritual beer. Like, no, dude. You start out with milk, then you get the meat. So I think you need to earn your spirituality in a way. Earth, round or flat? Round. I have no reason to believe the Earth is flat. Everything seems to point to it being round. So my worldview is that it is round. Now, that being said, I have nothing against flat earthers. I think it's silly, but a lot of people think a lot of things are silly. If you're a flat earther, I want to talk to you. I want to get to know you. I want to see where you're coming from. I'm not going to change my mind, so don't go in expecting anything like that, but I want to get to know you. And I think there is an unfortunate stigma against like conspiracy theorists and stuff like that. People who think probably a little too far out of the box. Yeah, I don't think these people should be demonized or cast out of the town square. You know, I think everybody's voice should be heard, unless you're calling for violence. Yeah. All of your experiences with God's one true art, anime. Funny that you ask that, because Rachel and I are in the middle of Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, and after this podcast or live stream, whatever it is, I'm going to try to convince her to watch another episode with me. I think anime is something I've noticed is anime shows are very good, in my experience, at communicating really deep, meaningful topics. And they don't always use traditional like 8-act story structure, you know? Like sometimes it's like kind of non-traditional means of communicating a story. And that's fine as long as it works. That's what matters. But I started out with Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood because it was like recommended to me strongly. But then I started watching some other anime and like Rachel too. And it's like, these are actually really good stories. And they're communicating things that I think we want and we need, you know, that are not really being communicated in Western media, you know, like personal the Jordan Peterson thing, you know, personal responsibility, rising up and fighting the dragon. It seems like, wow, well, of course, dude, like there's nothing special about that. It's like, shut up, you stupid idiot. There is something special about that. We need to continue retelling these stories all the time, because that's a reflection of who we are. The kind of stories we tell is a reflection of who we are. And if we tell stories that are self-loathing and hateful and dirty, I mean, there's a place for that because we want to be critical, but the kind of stuff that we cherish, it's like, if you cherish anime, you probably cherish some weird stuff like big titties, and that's not weird, but I don't know, like there's the other element of anime is like hypersexualization. Judicator album about anime titties when? Never, but it's fun to think about, I guess. Yeah, so I don't know. There's a degenerate element in every kind of media, to be sure, not just anime. Okay, I think that's it. I hope this was a fruitful, good live stream for you guys. We had fewer people than last time. Last time we had like 12, 13. This time it's about, we kept it around 8, 9, 10, 11, which is fine. Like I said in the first episode, as long as we keep like above 3 people, I'll keep doing more. I just enjoy talking, and I'm flabbergasted and honored and heartful. Heartful? Is that a word? I'm heartful that you guys could spend 2.5 hours with me. That's humbling. So thank you guys. My wife is probably irate with me, and rightfully so. I told her we're going to keep it under 2 hours, I promise. Ugh, 2 hours, 33 minutes, and 59 seconds later. Ugh. But I'm going to go make it up to her. And I guess I'll see you guys 2 weeks from now. And we'll get another poll going here in a day or two. And I thank you guys very much. I hope this was good for you. Was it good for you? It was good for me. Okay, guys, take care. Thank you so much. Hey, somebody came in. We went from 9 to 10. You came in just at the end, Charlie. Sorry about that. Okay. Love you guys. Take care. Have a great night. Say something nice to somebody in your life. Do something good for somebody in your life. Surprise somebody tomorrow. That's what I'd say. I'm going to do the same. Surprise somebody tomorrow with kindness. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.